Hello everybody and welcome back to the Garibaldi Red podcast, a Nottingham Forest podcast. I'm Mike Sayes, your host, and as Nottingham Forest go joint second in the Premier League with a 3-2 win over Southampton at the City Ground, Forest continue their impressive now 8-game unbeaten run. We will discuss that. Anthony Taylor doing Anthony Taylor things, Taiwo Awonyi and much more throughout. Lots to discuss after Forest get there. Well, another big win, and it means that 8-game unbeaten run continues. Joined, first of all, by TalkSport broadcaster Max Scott. Max, good to see you, mate. I thought you were going to have to step in last minute and host this podcast, given my mic problems. But we're here, we're sorted. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good, mate. Sam and I didn't tell you that you were cracking up right just before, but we were like, we need to get on with this bloody thing. But it seems all right now, so yeah.
Good. The magic of live podcasts. We are live on Nottingham Forest News and YouTube Garibaldi Red. So hopefully mic problems stay away throughout. Also joined by Sam Evans from the Tricky Tea T-shirt business. Sam, good to see you, mate. And I was saving this story for the podcast. I walked down to the main stand yesterday into the toilets. And there was a guy with your brilliant T-shirt on with the Nuno T-shirt. So I thought I would save it to intro you, mate. So it seems like a lot of people are wearing the T-shirts. How are you, mate? And how did you... you went to the game yesterday. Enjoy it?
Yeah, it's good, thanks. Thanks for having me on again. It's funny you say that. I had a couple of other people come up to me yesterday, which was nice. Good to see people wearing it at the games as well, which is great. But yeah, enjoyed the game. It was a bit of an odd one in the end, but we got 3 points, so that's all that matters.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, spot on. We will discuss the kind of odd ending throughout and, other bits and pieces. We don't like to make this a podcast that moans about referees, but we've got to talk about Anthony Taylor. So we'll get on to him very shortly. So do stay with us. We'll be here for the next 40 minutes or so. Sam, let's start with you then at the game, as I was yesterday. Just your general thoughts. I mean, to be 3-0 up at half-time and think we're cruising... I thought the atmosphere was a bit flat yesterday. We almost expected to beat Southampton, perhaps, no disrespect to them, but where they are in the league table at the minute, it turned out to be a more challenging game in the second half. But first half, Forest were cruising, and maybe that just shows kind of where we are as a club now. We're 3-0 up at half-time in the Premier League. It's been a while since that, right?
Yeah, I think it was foreign territory, really. I think we've not been used to seeing ourselves in that position. I think that's probably what led to the kind of the bit of the complacency. It was a odd game, and we were very clinical. I thought in the first half. I thought as clear cut chances came, there weren't too many, and I think anything that we did get, we just stuck it away really well. So at half time, I was thinking, yeah, this could be many goals. It could be a 5 or 6-0, and obviously it didn't turn out that way. There was obviously a few things that we'll talk about later regarding decisions and things like that didn't go our way. But yeah, maybe just a bit of complacency. And I think if you're going to get one of those kind of games that kind of you need to kick up the backside, then doing it in a 3-2 win is one of those. So hopefully it means that complacency is in a win, and it doesn't come as a loss in future games.
Yeah, no, spot on. Not Dan. That's just because I've messaged our podcast producer, Dan. Max, what did you make of it? Because, as Sam said, it did become a nervy end at the end, and you almost felt like the old Forest were creeping back a little bit. There was just that sense of anxiety. Do you not think?
Yeah, there was. You're right, and I wouldn't say the old Forest, but familiar feelings from seasons past, wasn't there? And, if it wasn't for the best right back in the country, then it probably would. And, Anthony Taylor, in the grander scheme of the game, then it would have been 3-3. And the narrative then changes around Forest, whether or not we're in a title race, which I'm sure we'll talk about. And then, other teams closing in on us. City are finding form again. Bournemouth are looking absolutely top class, despite the fact they've got 9 players out injured. Narrative changes, and I thought ultimately when Southampton came back into the game, we didn't respond to the momentum shift quick enough. But in those extra 12 minutes, we did what we needed to do. And having played, 97 minutes against the best team in Europe and getting another point off them midweek, I think probably Nuno's pretty happy with that. So yeah, wasn't one to remember in that second half, or from 70 minutes on. But they did what they needed to do, and that's what great teams do.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was actually just about to say, is that what almost you have that, not luck in a way, because you create your own luck sometimes in football, Max, but you have that thing, almost that special feeling around the place where even though things might not go your way, and we talk about refereeing decisions and we talk about Southampton, and for a team that are sat bottom of the table and they're probably going to be arguably the worst team in the Premier League, they're going to beat Derby's record as it stands, right? They showed fight, they showed passion, but Forest held out well, and it shows almost how far we've come as a club, and you just have that little bit of luck on your side when things are going well. Do you agree, Max?
Yeah, when the wind's beneath your sails, and you're used to winning, then you get yourself out of situations like that. And also there's a bit of like reputational pride there as well, because what you don't want, if you're the most informed team in Europe, I think alongside Atletico Madrid, then you don't want to be conceding a 3-goal lead to Southampton and you dig your heels in and you do something about it. And they did that, and it wasn't pretty, but whether when you look back at a season that brings Forest European football, Conference League, Europa League, Champions League, maybe just maybe a title, you look back at moments like that and think that's what top teams do. It's what title-winning teams do, or it's what teams do that do special things. That's what they do. And so, yeah, over and out on that one, and look ahead to a really difficult game against Bournemouth.
Absolutely, yeah. Bournemouth is going to be an interesting one. We'll discuss that a little later on. I think that it's just one of those. I'm shocked it's not been picked for TV. Obviously, hindsight's a wonderful thing, but when both sides are doing well, and nice to see Bournemouth, who came up with us really, almost going against the Premier League narrative and that top six focus really. Sam, I wanted to touch on, before we look at individual performances and we talk about Elliot Anderson's great goal, Callum Hudson-Odoi and Chris Ward, I kind of wanted to touch on how united the team is, and we talk about it week in, week out, and we've talked about it many times on the podcast, whether we're reviewing games or previewing games. But I just thought yesterday was another symbol that it just almost showed to me how together the side are, and how Nuno has just the culture at the club. And you saw at the end the way that Nuno was with Murillo and even Taiwo after arguably a little bit of a poor performance from him. So it just shows that the players are united. And when Elliot Anderson gets on the score sheet, somebody that probably deserves more goals than he gets on the score sheet yesterday. He's had a brilliant performance, and when he scores that goal, Ola Reina and Callum Hudson-Odoi and Anthony Elanga are all down there with him, almost kind of bigging him up in front of the A block, and that just goes to show just how united the team are together at the minute.
Yeah, well, I think that's that bond that they've all got together is probably the most important reason why we are where we are. It's that they've clearly got such a strong core of that team, and they're all fighting for each other, and you can see it at the end. They all celebrating together every goal. They're so happy for each other. Like Aina was bigging Anderson up in front of the A block. It was fantastic. It was really, really good to see. And yeah, like I say, it's the main reason why this core of potential Premier League rejects or what you want to call them, that maybe it hasn't worked out for them before in their career, have all come together, and they've all banded together, and that's the reason they're flying so high in the Premier League right now. They're working for each other, and the results are showing from that hard work.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point. And just staying on that quickly, Max, as Sam just brilliantly said there, about almost it being a team of players that have failed before or have needed to almost reignite their career. And there's many of them, and you can maybe make a case for 90% of the team. You just wonder whether that's important, the squad and so how well Nuno's done of almost. You wonder whether he's done that on purpose. You wonder whether he's brought players that have to prove a point in, and I don't mean that in a disrespectful way. But you look at the likes of Elliot Anderson that have maybe had to prove his score in a bit of an odd PSR deal. You look at the likes of Nico Williams that was not very highly rated at Liverpool, Anthony Elanga, Callum Hudson-Odoi, Chris Wood. The list goes on. They're all players that have had something to prove this season. Yeah,
I think that is largely due to economic constraints on the club. It was less than a year ago we got a 4-point deduction, and so that's the way that Forest have to go. We've got to be savvy. Although Mr. Marinakis certainly has the funds, we need to balance our books according to PSR rules. And so I think that's maybe by design, but largely by necessity that we have to bring players in. But for a club like Forest with a fantastic support, great history, and incredibly ambitious, it's a really attractive proposition for players like Hudson-Odoi and Alanga, who are clearly talented, have got a lot of raw talent, and need structure. And to come in and play for a manager like Nuno, and we've mentioned this before, so I won't really talk about it again, but who has a great track record. If you look at what he's done at Wolves, there's a fantastic track record of building great teams. Then it's a really attractive proposition for players. So I think that we'll probably be doing this for a couple of seasons. I think until there's a work done on the stadium and we can get more revenue from tickets. I think if we get into Europe, obviously that's great for us financially, and it puts us a bit more on the map globally for revenue streams. It's going to take some time before we can be spending the the money that people like Tottenham and Villa and United are all spending on players. So. But that is an endearing part of the team. That's an endearing part of being a Forest fan. Is like Sam says, you've got this camaraderie. You can see that as a fan that they love playing for Forest. They love playing for the badge. They love playing at the City Ground. And all of the little antics, like Olaraina's Snapchat, my God. Like, it's my favourite viewing. You talk about being a good broadcaster and stuff. He's just the best guy. He's got to have a career for me in media when he retires. Anyway, so all of these things add to a great feeling at the club, and that's all down to it.
Absolutely. Yeah, we talked last week about Olaraina's Snapchat. We were on about it with Steve and Sarah and said whether did they have Snapchat. But honestly, it's brilliant. And when they get uploaded to TikTok and all the reels and things like that.
I only ever see it through Twitter, second.
Right. Yeah,
but that thing against them, I thought it was a perfect sort of summary of the Liverpool game when he was like, just going back and forth about reasons why should we have won, should we have lost? No, probably a fair draw. It was bang on.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, great. I think he. I saw the one where he was saying that they almost felt disappointed that they hadn't won, and there was reports from the Telegraph as well that many of the Forest hierarchy were disappointed. I don't think in a bad way, but were frustrated that we didn't beat Liverpool, given where the club is now and given the ambition from those inside the doors at the City Ground, which is fair enough given the past couple of weeks. A few comments on Facebook and YouTube if you're watching live. If you've got us on, I know it's a bit of a random Monday in January and you might be at work or whatever, but stick us on and keep the comments coming. This one from Richie: been a wonderful season so far, and hopefully we can kick on and get to Europe and establish ourselves again and put us back on the map. Ian says, I think the second half yesterday was in a weird way what we needed, highlighted the need to stay focused and to maintain intensity at all times, and for the subs when they come on to bring extra energy. Yeah, good comment.
That's my one from Ian. Can I just say I completely agree, and I thought that at full time, I thought we've got away with the 3 points, we move on, but it's a massive sort of shot across the bow to face Bournemouth, because you think we've conceded from 2 set pieces in 2 games, and that was sort of, it's almost like demons from the past coming back to haunt us. You mentioned earlier, Max, about those feelings of Forest of old, and I think that stemmed from looking a little bit vulnerable at set pieces, and we're going to go to Bournemouth, a team who, and I want you to correct me if I'm wrong on this, because I tried to find out when the last time we beat Bournemouth was. And I went on one of those sort of like dodgy websites that just listed it all. And to my understanding, I could well be wrong, last time we beat him was 2015.
Yeah, you're right. No, you're right, Max.
I mean,
I had this exact same conversation yesterday with someone.
I love the place of Bournemouth. I lived there for 7-8 years. So many of my best friends are down there. I love it. Right, but I cannot stand the fact that we haven't beaten them in 10 years, precisely because of that. I mean, what Bournemouth have done as a club is amazing, but I can't stand the fact we haven't won. They are our bogey team, and it's a great warning shot, because 2 set pieces in 2 games, but it wasn't just the corner they scored, Southampton. Every single corner, we looked in disarray, I felt, and to be fair, they were whipping in some fantastic corners. But we've got to sort that out, and hopefully, and I'm sure it will be, they're professionals. They want to get to Europe as much as we do. But hopefully they're on the training ground this week saying, right, what have we got wrong? We need to reset and reorganise, because we've got a great chance of beating Bournemouth, which we haven't done for 10 years.
Yeah, absolutely. No, and really nice point there, Max, and especially Ian's comment as well. I think it was maybe a bit of a wake-up call, and maybe the complacency thing comes into it as well. Let's talk Elliot Anderson. Mentioned him earlier, but nice to see him on the score sheet. Sam, a player that maybe should, he deserves more goals than potentially he gets, but just goes to show how significant he is in the team. We talk about him week in, week out. He never seems to put a foot wrong. The players around him celebrating, great to see, and to score almost again quite early, get the lead. It just shows where we are as a team at the minute. Yeah,
it was a great finish. Really, really good finish, and yeah, he has deserved it, because I think a lot of his work does go unnoticed, because he's not the one that's necessarily in those positions to get the goals all the time, because he's doing a lot of the legwork in that kind of defensive role as well that he's doing. Which he does fantastically well. I think just watching the game yesterday summed it up in, must have been about the 98th minute, and Southampton had the ball at the back, and we were maybe lacking a bit of pressing towards the end of the game. And Anderson, who's just played the whole game in centre mid, box to box, he's been everywhere. He's sprinting after centre halves, he's doing everything, and it's fantastic to see someone with that much talent have that motivation, desire to play, and that's the sort of thing that gets you to where he is and to the top of the game. And that sort of mentality and obviously having the talent to go with it is a massive part, and he clearly has that. So yeah, he's going to go so far, and I would not be surprised to see him in an England shirt in the next 6 months or so. I think he's definitely earned it. And if I was Tuchel, I'd be thinking, well, he's the perfect sort of player to have in that midfield.
Can I just say as well, what on earth is Tuchel doing going and watching Everton Spurs yesterday? Do you know what I mean? Like bottom of the table clash. Come to the world famous and sit with, big Evangelos and, and watch it on his big telly that he's just had if you want.
Smashed,
come on, what? I mean, there's so many players in there. Particularly Gibbs White and Anderson, but you look at, surely you've got to be thinking about Callum Hudson-Odoi. I mean, there are so many good players. I saw him in stands at Cuddles and thought, who Jordan Pickford's, I mean, that's a dead cert. You don't even need to go watch him. Who else? Dominic Calvert-Lewin? Come on. Anyway.
He did score a good goal, though. He did score a good goal.
He did score, his first goal in an era. I mean, look, I say this tongue in cheek, but Elliot Anderson, I tweeted after the game. I think he's got everything. He's got a bit, after the Liverpool game, I sat with my family and friends we watched the game with, and they were saying, he's got a bit of Gaza about him. Now, I remember Gaza, but back end of his career, so can't really say much about it. But having seen clips of Gaza, the way he played, he's got that. Yeah, you described it, Sam. He's not just got that mercurial talent. The way that he beats people so easily in tight spaces looks like Morgan Gibbs-White at times, but he's got that physicality and that drive. I think he looks a lot fitter than he did earlier in the season. I don't know what you boys think. There are a few occasions earlier on when he looked like he was blowing at about 75 minutes. And that's perhaps just because he's playing regular football, playing a different style of football. But that sort of fight you talk about, Sam, that's like a non-negotiable in this side, isn't it? And what, talking on TalkSport this morning about Forest and something that I think Ali McCoy was saying was just how that this is a proper team. There's never really, there is like standout players, but everybody's performing. Everybody's eking out, every single last ounce of talent that they've got. And that's, again, it makes you so proud of everything that's happening at the minute.
Yeah, absolutely. It just goes to show that playing up, but it just goes to show that I think Forest have done a great job of bringing players in that almost know what it means to wear the shirt, and in the nicest way possible. But we saw when Forest put in the ridiculous amount of players when we got promoted, and there was many players in that side. I just look at Jesse Lingard, and he might have been dancing around the dressing room, but he didn't really offer much on the pitch, and he certainly didn't probably represent the way that we wanted Forest to be represented. Whereas you think you feel like players like Elliot Anderson that have come into the club, have never been in have never lived in Nottingham, have never maybe got the Forest culture. They've got it straight away, and obviously that is credit to the player, to Nuno, and the recruitment as well. Let's talk. And I also think about Elliot Anderson. he goes unnoticed in a way, and I mean this in a sense of you never see him arguing with the referee. He kind of backs off. He just kind of stays out of that. He looks quite like a shy individual. He looks quite quiet, and he just almost puts his head down and does the work.
He came and spoke. He spoke after the Liverpool game, and I was really impressed with how he spoke. Yeah, you've touched on it there. Really humble, really articulate, really thoughtful. And I was just really impressed with that, that he's got that about him. And you see that intelligence on the pitch for sure. But it was, really nice to see.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And his interview with Colin Fray yesterday on BBC Radio Nottingham was nice as well. Let's talk Callum Hudson-Odoi. He gets the goal and then goes off injured. Jota Silva comes on. Think more of a precautionary to take Callum Hudson-Odoi, given where Forest were in the game and the scoreline at the time. Nuno says it shouldn't be anything serious. Callum Hudson-Odoi has also posted on social media to say he'll see all the Forest fans soon, so it can't be anything too bad. But just staying on you, Max, about Callum Hudson-Odoi, up until that injury, he obviously gets the goal. Two good goals, really, for Forest to open the scoring. And again, we talk about it week in, week out. Teams struggle to mark and break. Well, teams struggle to almost defend against Callum Hudson-Odoi. And whether it's Southampton at the bottom of the table, whether it's a team towards the top end of the table. And it just goes to show he's such a key player for Forest, and also he's changing the way he plays a little bit. He's not doing his usual cutting inside. He seems to be becoming more versatile. I've just kind of observed that the past couple of games. I don't know if you have.
It was near post. It was a near post, wasn't it? He didn't sort of and that that maybe shows he's sort of like diversifying in his game. But you've got to adapt. Teams are going to be paying even closer attention to Forest in their preparations for matches, such as our form and how dangerous we are on the counter-attack. And I sometimes find that a bit of a lazy analysis about Forest's hopes this season. Our teams will find them out. We're over halfway through the season. We've got 4 points off Liverpool as an example, and we're unbeaten in 9 or 8, 9. What is it? 8, 9 now?
8.
8. And so, So I think the reason I don't like that argument is because it underestimates how good Forest are, and they will constantly be adapting and constantly be aware of how tactically teams are shaping up to play against them. And we can see that with Callum Hudson-Odoi, is that he's becoming a better player. I really hope that we get European football, partly because it's going to be a huge way to keep these players, right? And someone like Callum Hudson-Odoi, clubs all over Europe, all over the Premier League will be looking. Clubs like Spurs, who aren't as good as Forest, who don't have the history, who aren't as successful on the pitch, who aren't as exciting to watch, who aren't as well managed, who don't have as much talent, will be able to put in big bids for someone like Callum Hudson-Odoi. And I think getting Europe is going to allow us, free us up to strengthen rather than replace. And that's really key. And that's why I'm just desperate that a week ago I was saying, I'd be happy with Conference League, and I would be. But getting Champions League football, you're almost guaranteed that Murillo sticks around, Callum Hudson-Odoi, Gibbs-White, Anderson, essentially Aina, the entire team is likely to stay unless they get offered ridiculous wages by Man City to move elsewhere.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a really good point, that, Max. And I think in a way, if you're almost guaranteed, if you're guaranteed to keep hold of the players that Forest have got for next season, and then you play in European football, and then who knows where we might finish next season, and it just almost that slow build of turning into a European side, and people say 5-year plan, it almost speeds up even more, because you almost establish yourself in the Premier, you establish yourself as a European side, and by constantly adding to the squad, because it will be a very, very nice move for any player that's kind of looking around the Premier League. I just think that's really key. So it is funny, isn't it, how almost visions change. We all thought that we'd be all right with mid-table, then Europa Conference League.
Yeah, I think it adds a bit of pressure maybe as well, a little bit. Obviously, we're way above expectations, but like you say, Forest have shown now that they have got the players and they can perform at that level. So a club like, you say, like someone like Tottenham that has this funding that they can go and basically pick apart any team they want to if they desire within PSR rules. they've almost got a proven blueprint that Forest players can do this. So I'd say a little bit. It almost adds a little bit of pressure that we're in this position now, and we have to make sure that we take advantage of it and we get that European spot, because, like, as daft as it sounds, not getting Europe right now would look bad. It would look bad.
It'd look like
which is
an
crazy
implosion.
to say. It would, which is crazy to say. But that's the position we've got ourselves in, and obviously that's the position you want to be in. But we need to make sure that we maintain that. And like you say, if we can get those spots, those players are going to stay, and we're going to be a more attractive outfit for the other players as well.
Absolutely.
You talk about changing expectations as well. Last season and at the start of this season, we were looking at clubs like Brentford and clubs like Brighton and saying that is a great blueprint. And that being, crikey, if we can get to that level of sustainability in the Premier League, we've done an amazing job. And that is still the case, right? But now, where we are, joint second, unbeaten in 8, you're looking now at Villa, Newcastle, and the shift that they've made from being, mid-table clubs to now being sort of up there in those European spots regularly, playing European football, not this season for Newcastle, but they're looking like they will next season. And now we're that step up, and that's what ambition does, and that's what success does, is it constantly changes your parameters of expectation. And, that is all down to Mr. Marinakis, who, I've said it before, I'll say it again. When everybody was saying he wants us to, get back to Europe, were, people outside the club laughing at him, people inside the club thinking, hold on, mate, a bit too far. And that's been the case, and that ambition has driven us to a point now where we're seriously having these conversations.
Yeah, spot on. Honestly, Max, spot on. And I think as well how nice it would be for Forest to do it this season and to get the European football to, Champions League, wherever we'll finish around, hopefully the top 6, to prove to other teams that you can do it. Yeah. And people go, well, Forest have spent money. Well, yeah, we've spent money, but we've not spent as much money as Liverpool. We've not spent as much money as Man City, Tottenham, Chelsea. The list goes on. And I think it almost changes the narrative in the Premier League, both inside and outside, and in terms of media and even the clubs, that it is possible for a team that might come up. You look at a Sunderland, you look at a Leeds at the minute that are a Burnley that are fighting for promotion in the Championship. Well, sustain in the Premier League for 2 seasons, get a bit of money behind you, get a good coach in, build a philosophy. You never know where you'll go. And I was saying that to a couple of mates earlier. I think it's important. Jamie Carragher highlighted it well. I mean, he's still waiting for him to apologise about his stupid prediction at the start of the season, but he highlighted it well about it, almost Forest needing to continue the way that we are. A few comments. Phil says European football can also be a way of securing signings as well as bringing in extra revenue for PSR. Yeah, good point, Phil. You forget that about ins and outs and in terms of the financial scape of football these days. Mark says need to be at it against Bournemouth. They were excellent at Newcastle and put it about with their tackling. Yeah, going to be a real interesting game. Let's talk the second half. Obviously, Chris Wood gets the goal that sees Forest go in at the break 3 goals up. Everyone's thinking we can breathe, we can relax. Second half, bit of a different story. Southampton, I thought, played well. They showed fight and desire. If Southampton fans are questioning the fight and desire of their side and whether the players want it, well, for me, watching as a bit of a neutral, they certainly did. Let's talk VAR. We've got to touch on it. We've got to talk about Anthony Taylor. Sam, you were inside the ground when obviously Forest scored that Milenkovic header. Southampton's goal was given. There was a lot of moments with VAR. Sometimes you forget it's in games because we can go without a review on the screen, but Anthony goes to the monitor to disallow the goal. What did you make of VAR yesterday, its involvement? What did you make of Anthony Taylor? Be careful with your words maybe here.
Yeah, I mean, there was a few things I think that need to talk about. I mean, if we talk about the goal, I was sat in the upper Bridgeford end, so I was kind of the opposite side of the ground to it. And obviously, when the goal went in, my first reaction was just, that's a howler from Ramsdale. Can't see why they're VAR in it. There might have been an offside that maybe Milenkovic was offside, but obviously I can't see from where I was. So when the VAR sent Anthony Taylor to the screen, I was thinking, okay, maybe there's a handball or something, because it can't be offside, surely. It's black and white offside. And yeah, he's gone to the screen, and for me, it just looks like in I just can't. I can't see how they've decided to overturn that goal and disallow it. I think that their argument was that Chris Wood was interfering with. I can't remember the name of the lad that came on for Southampton, but they were arguing that he was interfering. But he was about 2 yards away from Milenkovic. Didn't challenge for the ball. Basically, just ducked out and didn't do his defensive duty. And Milenkovic obviously puts the ball on target, does what he can, and the ball goes in the back of the net. But it just with Anthony Taylor, it just feels like it's always got to be something in any game we play. And there was a couple in that game. It's not just that. There was the Flynn Downs elbow or shoulder on Gibbs White was right in front of me, and I was astounded that didn't go to VAR because it was right in front of me. Everyone saw it, clear as day. It was a shoulder / elbow straight to the face. I'm thinking, if that's on the street, you're getting locked up for that. Genuinely, it was. There was no attempt to play the ball. It was just a stupid tackle from a player that's clearly lost his head and was losing the battle midfield. He'd already left one in on Morgan earlier on that didn't get punished with a yellow card, which should have done. So there was it was baffling. I mean, there was one in the second half as well, like. I think Carl Walker-Peters was on a yellow card and Nico Williams was through and he dragged him back, but because Williams stayed on his feet and managed to get a cross in, that doesn't constitute for it, which is I don't know. It was annoying. I came away from the game after getting 3 points and felt annoyed, and I was like, this isn't the feeling I should get, but we're fortunate in the fact that it hasn't led to anything going against us, and we've come away with the win. Because we all know we've had plenty in the past that have gone against us and caused us to lose games. So we are lucky, but honestly, I just can't see Anthony Taylor refereeing a Forest game again. He needs to be put on other games. I just can't stand him.
Spot on. I just think that you're right, and as football fans, we don't want to keep criticising the referees because, let's face it, without the ref, the game doesn't exist. However, I just think it goes to show the complete incompetence from some Premier League referees. I thought Chris Cavani had a poor game against Liverpool. We'll let that one slip. Anthony Taylor gets sent to the City ground and has an abysmal game. If there is ever a referee to lose a football game, it's Anthony Taylor, and that's for both sides. Players get frustrated. There's cards flying about. He's missing. I mean, Morgan seemed to foul someone by touching them in the air. I mean, that clip is unbelievable. I mean, we can't show it for copyright reasons, but if you've got social media, if you've got the internet, just go on and search Morgan. Search almost the VAR controversy yesterday, and you will see the foul that we're on about. I can't really describe it that well because it isn't a foul. Morgan,
he was running alongside him about 2 yards away, right in front of Taylor, and the lad just trips over his own feet, doesn't he? Yeah. And he gives a free kick for it, and it's just really, really poor. I mean, going back to the goal, I don't know what you guys think. I mean, I think some of the Sky punditry was they were kind of on the side. I'm sorry, it was on Match of the Day. They were on the side of the referee, and I can't see it. I think Mark Chapman was very much like that's never should have been given as an offside. But what do you guys think?
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree. I can't see how it's offside. I've watched it back many times, and I think not just that, as in if that was just the one incident yesterday, we'd have talked about it and moved on. But then the imaginary foul that Morgan Gibbs White's committed and this elbow, it's just ridiculous. And I just think general refereeing yesterday. Max, what did you think? Can you see why that goal was disallowed, or are you in complete agreement with us?
Complete agreement with you. Sam's articulated it really well. The thing for me is the wider point is this is another example of technology being used rather than to make the game more exciting. Football's about scoring goals. It seems more concerned about preventing goals and giving referees a platform to be the main character in a football game. The barometer of a referee having a good game is if you are not talking about them afterwards. Everybody always talks about Anthony Taylor when he referees Forest games. The frustration for me is it feels like Anthony Taylor is a bit like a teenager that always has to have the last word, a stroppy teenager. And the perfect example is the Brighton incident. Rob Jones clearly indicates no, Morgan Gibbs-White got the ball, and in what in my mind is an unprecedented turn of events, the fourth official, the bloke in a tracksuit that's not allowed on the pitch, tells the referee to change his mind. And then a few days later, the key match incident panel turns around and says it shouldn't have been a second yellow card. Yet, ridiculous laws from the PGMOL mean that Morgan Gibbs-White still has to serve a ban for his reaction to the decision that was proved wrong, which all came down to Anthony Taylor. Again, announcing himself in a match where no one really knows he's there because he's on the sidelines as a fourth official. What you're meant to do, mate, is put the numbers on the board and hold it up for it so that, and turn it to an angle so people can see it. So that for me is a perfect example of a culture at the PGMOL that is not like rugby, where they work as a team. It's a collegiate approach where they're vying for this being a figure as a top dog. You read Mark Clattenburg's book, when he left refereeing, they all hate each other. It's maybe a bit hyperbole, but a lot of them don't get on. There's factions. And yesterday, it just seemed a bizarre way to disallow a goal. It'd been allowed on the field. There was no contact between players. Ramsdale, if Ramsdale saves that, they're not going to give an offside for Chris Wood, or they're not, I don't know. It just again feels like a referee, and it's not just Anthony Taylor, but it seems to happen a lot to Forest. A referee wanting that sort of main character energy, and really, really frustrates me. It's bad for the game.
Spot on. Just we'll leave you with this about Anthony Taylor. This is just from memory. I made a few notes last night on the way back from the game. So he didn't give a penalty against Newcastle. You remember that game? He didn't give 3 penalties against Everton. He was involved in that. He told the referee at Brighton, as Max was just saying, to send Morgan Gibbs-White off. He didn't spot the elbow yesterday. He didn't send Downs off. He's disallowed a normal game. He's gave a nothing free kick for a Southampton goal. I'm kind of listing all those things, and I'm not going to point it out, but it continues that, well, the facts are there. So maybe the PGMOL and the Premier League need to look at Anthony Taylor refereeing Forest games. Won't say any more than that.
What can I just say? That Bournemouth away, last few games of the promotion season, when we looked like we could get automatic, Sam Surridge was denied a penalty in the first half. Was that Anthony Taylor?
No, I think it was Stuart Atwell, Max. That was Stuart Atwell. From memory, mate, that was Stuart Atwell, but they're both as bad as each other. Moving on, we don't want it to become a referee podcast, although it's difficult not to talk about it when they can't do a job. Let's talk about the substitutions that Nuno made and Taiwo very quickly before we look at Bournemouth. Sam, were they the right subs for Nuno to make yesterday? Was it an odd move bringing Morata on? Was it an odd move tactically? Yeah, what did you make of the substitutions that Forest made? Unlike normal, I felt like they didn't impact the game in a positive way.
No, I didn't think we needed to make those changes so early. I thought the shape was working really well. We still looked a threat, and obviously Southampton came back into the game a bit more. But if you keep the likes of Elanga and Gibbs-White and Hudson-Odoi on the pitch, well, obviously he went off injured. But if you keep those players on the pitch, you're always going to be a threat. And I said this to my brother at the game. I think having these 5 substitutions in a game, I think it almost is like subconscious in the managers, where they feel like they've just got to make these changes constantly. And I understand that there's a lot of fixtures and you want to keep players fresh and free from injury, but they're professional footballers. Morgan Gibbs-White can play 90 minutes of football. He can, and they all can. So I feel like that kind of those 5 changes just means that managers nowadays just are like, right, I need to just change it up and throw other players on. And you saw when the new kind of front 3 were on with Sousa, Jota Silva and Taiwo, they just looked off the pace of the game completely. And for me, I would have liked to have seen more keeping that kind of the structure of the team in place intact for longer periods of the game. I just felt like the subs that came on didn't really impact the game. They weren't really up to speed with the game, whereas the players that were on were really looking very sharp and were a threat. So that's my kind of take from it. Really, it frustrates me when we do that. And I think the Morata one, I think going back to a back 5, I think it works really, really well against good teams. I think when we're a goal or two up, and we go right back five, and then it's almost like a demoralising thing for one of those teams that they think they've got a bit of a sniff, and then we bring another really good centre half on, and it's like, right, come and break us down. And more often than not, they don't do it. But a team like Southampton, where I think they were there for the taking, we could have put so many more past them. I think I would have liked to have seen us be a bit more positive and stuck with what we were doing, rather than kind of go to that defensive shape and kind of settle with what we had.
Yeah, no, I completely agree.
About Morgan Gibbs-White, I think he, if anything, he's the most sort of dogged and determined, ratting at in defence sort of player. He's clearly fit enough. Just leave him on for that little bit of composure. Yeah, I agree with that. I've not thought of that, but because at the time I sort of thought, we've got a big game at the weekend. We're going to win this game. We've played 97 minutes against Liverpool. I sort of understood try and protect Gibbs-White. It's becoming a bit of a pattern, isn't it?
Yeah, it is both, and I think that I just think that managers, as you said, Sam, it seems like it's a modern day football thing. Managers almost have to change it. Well, don't fix what ain't not praised. No, that's that. That's the saying, is it? That's it, Max. Tom, mate, appreciate it. Sorry, my brain wasn't working then.
It only used to be one sub, and that was before the days of all this sports science and everything now. So I think if it could have been done back then, and people could have done 90 minutes back then with one sub, I think just crack on and yeah.
Do you know what? I can picture someone now clipping that and putting the Sean Dyche by the wall kind of utter woke nonsense meme. I can just picture it now. Let's talk Taiwo before we look at Bournemouth very quickly. Max, I don't know. I don't like to be harsh on players, and we've discussed Taiwo Awonyi many times, but he doesn't look like the player he was in the first season for Forest. He doesn't even look like the player he was last season, albeit he was injured for large parts of it. I'm just really struggling to defend him anymore, and I just wonder whether he offers absolutely anything coming on, or am I being really harsh here, mate?
Well, he scored against Wolves. Didn't look too great against. Didn't look good against Southampton. I think was a bit of a nuisance against Liverpool. There's very little you can do in that amount of time, but I think a couple of surgeries for a big lad like that. He doesn't look as nimble. He doesn't look as agile. Doesn't look as quick. He's done an amazing job for Forest. We wouldn't be in the Premier League if it wasn't for Big T. But if someone like West Ham is sniffing around, and David Sullivan, who doesn't know who he's signing, in my opinion, got a really poor track record recently at West Ham. If he's willing to chuck 20 million, I'd say take it. And send Taiwo on his way and hope that perhaps things can change for him elsewhere. But I think if the music would be if Nuno thought he was seeing something in training when we're 3-0 up, he'd bring him on sooner. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. And he's giving him 5 minutes, 6 minutes. We're comfortably beating Wolves. Doesn't bring him on for 20. Which you think protect Chris Wood at all costs. What happens if he gets injured? So I don't want to say anything sort of disrespectful about him. But
no, yeah.
I wouldn't mind if he left, and I think that potentially that then frees you up to go and do something at the end of January before the window closes.
Yeah, absolutely. Sam, do you agree there? Anything more to add on Taiwo?
Yeah, I think it's a move that needs to happen for both parties. I think it's the best for both. He needs to go and get some minutes and get himself back to where he was before. And at the moment, he's not going to get the chance to do that at Forest. And we also can't be in a position to. We can't centre what we're doing around Taiwo getting back to full fitness. We need to focus on what we're doing. So yeah, I think it's probably the best time for both for it to part ways.
Yeah, good points. Stephen says, I am just frightened to death of Woody getting injured. We need a forward to push him and replace him if necessary. That centre forward at Ipswich will do. Taiwo simply isn't up to Premiership standard, and it may cost us later. Ian says, I've seen criticism of Taiwo and people saying he's not the Taiwo from last season. I wonder if he is actually if he actually is that Taiwo, but everyone else has stepped up so much now. He looks well below our new level. Ian, I'm going to reach out to you and try and get you on this podcast, mate. You make better points about Forest than me. Some interesting points there, and many comments about him. I think he kind of is split in opinion amongst the fan base. Let's talk Bournemouth quickly before we get going. Max, you mentioned it at the start of the podcast. You want Forest to beat Bournemouth. It's been an awful while. How do we do it? It's a challenging game. Can Forest go and get a result? Do you think this will be the most difficult test in a while?
Of course we can. I mean, look at us. This is the best Forest have played my entire life, and I'm the oldest out of all of us, right? So it absolutely, of course we can. I'm more confident than ever, but not in a way that underestimates Bournemouth. I've learned the hard way not to do that. I lived there, I taught there. All of the teenagers I used to teach at secondary school, their second team was Bournemouth because, of course, they're all City or Liverpool or Manchester United in Bournemouth. I remember actually when that championship game when they beat us and then they got promoted, seeing all these like 15-year-old smelly year 10 lads, all lovely lads, but, need a bit of Links Africa, on the pitch, picking me out in the crowd, giving it large. And I see them on like Nottingham uniform day in a United shirt or a Liverpool shirt. Come on, do me a favour. And I actually know quite a lot of Bournemouth season ticket holders. I know a Bournemouth season ticket holder who's a Villa fan. Anyway, I despite all that, I love the place. I admire the club and the way it's run. It's a really nice club. I like going to watch football there because you're right, on the pitch. And they've been our bogey team. I remember the last time we beat them. It was obviously it wasn't Premier League, crikey. It was the season they went up in the Championship, and they had Richie and that small Scottish lad who was at Newcastle and then went to Southampton.
Ryan Fraser.
Really Scottish. Who?
Ryan Fraser. Is that one?
Ryan Fraser. And honestly, they looked like sort of like Messi and Neymar in the Championship. Anyway, we beat them 2-1. I was sat in Brian Clough Upper, and it was, and they were so much better than we were. I just so hope we win, and I think we can because we're so fantastic. And they've got 9 players out. They've got Enes Unal out, Evan Nielsen out.
Yep.
Clive looks a real problem though. Semenyo looks like a top class player. Another one that I think could be on Thomas Tuchel's radar if we're talking about the likes of Hudson-Odoi. Anyway, if we just do what we do best, then yeah. They haven't got the aerial threat that Southampton do from set pieces. Mind you, Diogo Jota's about 3 foot tall and he managed to score. But I just think if we get it right, then we're primed to get a result there. And I'd love it if we beat them. So, yeah.
Yeah. I tell you what, Max, Nuno's team talk on Saturday. Easy job. Just put this episode on from 46 minutes on and listen to your passionate rant, mate. About beating Bournemouth. I think that finishes us very nicely. 48 minutes, lots of comments as well live. Appreciate it's a bit of a random time to do it on a Monday, so thanks for sticking with us if you have done throughout and keeping the good contributions coming. We'll be back for a preview for Bournemouth Thursday or Friday, and then of course our main review episode on Sunday or Monday. Max, thanks as always, mate, for your time, and well done on the news for the main show, mate. Starting on, when does it start?
Oh, no, it started.
It started?
Thursday. Every Thursday, me and Rory Jennings on TalkSport 2, 3 till 5. Brilliant. And obviously I'm talking a lot about Forest, partly because I can, but largely because we are in a position where you cannot not talk about Forest. We're up there. So, yeah. Please, love you to come listen. Drop me. I'm going to start putting some stories on Insta and stuff on Twitter for people to message in with questions when we do sections on Forest. So yeah. Good
stuff, mate. Nice to see you, Forest. Thanks as ever, mate. And nice to meet you with the pitch today.
We got so close, didn't we, to having
a
stream.
One issue there. My question, I said, nice to see you yesterday, mate, and appreciate you on with Wi-Fi.
What are we going to do? Max usually does like a classic sort of send off at the end, doesn't it? He's prepared his final thoughts, and there it is.
Am I back? Am I back?
He's back. Yeah,
I'm back.
We're,
Oh,
we're waiting, Max, for your closing comment.
for my closing comments. Well, do you know what, mate? The script's thrown out the window. Thanks both as ever for joining. Apologies for the tech issues at the end. Always seems to happen on some random day that we didn't expect anything to happen. There we go. That's the magic of live broadcasting and podcasting. Max, Sam, thanks as ever. We will be back for our Bournemouth preview. Come on, you Reds, as Forest stretch their unbeaten run to 8 games. Give us a like, share and subscribe on YouTube. Follow us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. We will see you very soon. You Reds.